What is going on, guys? It is Garrett G Gaming here, and today I'd like to fly out the premium gift plane, the P-43 Lancer. Now, you have to get 7 aircraft marked with distinction to unlock this, and it comes in the US tech tree at rank 2. It's a battle rating 3.0, and it's a pretty decent aircraft. So you're probably looking at this thing and going, yo, that's basically just a baby P-47 Thunderbolt, and you are correct. The aircraft company Republic built this as a prototype, and then basically when they were looking for development orders, they were told, you know, this thing's going to be obsolete by the time any kind of conflict starts out. So instead they went back to the drawing board and they developed this aircraft further into the P-47, or the XP-47 as it was called back then, which is a very, very famous American aircraft. So this is sort of the precursor to that, the sort of plane that no one really knows about. There are plenty of these in American aviation history, especially if you know the F-117 Nighthawk. You'll look up the Have Blue program. That was instrumental to developing that aircraft. So yeah, as I think this is a P-47A, I believe. Yeah, a P-47A. So it should have the 1200 horsepower engine, I believe. I'm not too sure, I didn't really bother to check, but you can go into the, if you have this aircraft, you can go into the thing and just check out what engine it is. It'll either be an R1830-35 14-cylinder air-cooled radial, or it'll be the Pratt & Whitney R2180-1 Twin Hornet, which is 1400 horsepower. Either way, I'm not sure that's correct though, because only the P-38, so the P-43Js had that engine. But anyway, I'm rambling on about fucking aircraft engines, so let's move on. It was originally designed with an armament of 2 synchronized 50 calibers firing through the propeller hub, which you can see at the top of the aircraft there, and it had 2 30 caliber machine guns in each of the wings. However, this armament was later changed to just be 4 50 caliber machine guns. Now, it's not the best armament at this tier, but it's not bad either. As you see later on, I only get 1 kill in this game, but I ripped the wing off the guy, so it's pretty decent. Yeah, so when this thing was bought up, it went into trials in about the end of 1940, and by 1941 it was clearly obsolete. It lacked any form of maneuverability which was required, had no, what are those things called? The self-sealing fuel tanks, which the USAF sort of, the US Navy and the USAF really liked self-sealing fuel tanks. This didn't have any of that, or any kind of armor protection or anything like that. So they thought, this thing's shit, we're going to sideline it and we're going to produce the P-47 instead. However, what's remarkable is that during the war they actually managed to produce 272 of these aircraft, which is quite impressive, because that was only a year after they decided they didn't want to buy any. And it's quite funny, because they didn't want to produce any, yet they managed to build 272, which, I mean, it's not a lot on the grand scheme of the Second World War, but it's still quite a lot of aircraft, you know. It was mainly just to keep the production lines going. But they sent a lot of these P-43s to China, actually. The Flying Tigers group, the volunteers over there, they sent them over to fight the Japanese. And the pilots remarked that it obviously had much better high-altitude performance than the P-40. Well, it's a given due to its radial. Some of the P-43s were upgraded with like a turbo supercharger, but it proved unreliable due to just fuel leaks and shit like that. But an interesting thing is that they actually use these planes mainly for photo reconnaissance and training, which is quite interesting if you consider it. Another interesting note is that the only people who ever operated this aircraft, other than the United States and the People's Republic of the Republic of China Air Force, was actually the Royal Australian Air Force, which is why I've got an Aussie flag and a Royal Australian Air Force roundel on the side of my plane. The Australians will own 8 of these aircraft, and they were serving out of Coomaley Field, which is 60 miles south of Darwin. Darwin is the capital city of the Northern Territory, and it got bombed during the war. And yeah, the Royal Air Force were given 8, which they loaned between 1942 and 1943. 6 survived, so 2 were clearly shot down. But yeah, I just find that quite interesting, that this sort of obscure, rare fighter aircraft served in something like the Royal Australian Air Force. You know, it's just interesting to me, considering how few were built. So yeah, That's just a little bit of an interesting history. In terms of the plane's performance in game itself, I mean, I can't really tell you much because I'm not really much of a realistic battles pilot. I'm only here to sort of just shed some light on some interesting historical facts about the plane. I mean, from what I can tell, it's pretty quick for its tier. It can power dive very, very well. It's obviously not the most maneuverable armaments on the middle ground armament. Like, it's got decent ammunition capacity. You get 800 rounds, so that's 200 per gun. Maybe not quite 200 per gun. It might be a bit different, but that's what I can tell anyway. And just in general, it's a pretty effective aircraft when used correctly. As with most aircraft, I can't comment on whether it's really strong or really weak, because like I said, I'm not really much of a realistic battles aircraft pilot. I'm more of a tanker. But I just like to skim over some of the history of it, because I looked it up and I found it a bit interesting. And it's a current award vehicle, so if you're interested in getting it, go right ahead and get it, because I can recommend it for historical reasons. I've got a little goal, to get every Australian vehicle, or every vehicle used by like Australia in wartime that you can get in the game. So yeah. Well, I hope you guys have enjoyed the video. Like if you liked it, dislike if you fucking hated it. Comment down below if you've flown this out before, and make sure to subscribe if you'd like to see more videos from me.